Hello everyone and welcome back to What If Deku is macgrath? So let's get started. It's another day in the life of Izuku Midoriya where him and his best friend Katsuki are just kind of lounging around trying to figure out what they can do in preparation for them eventually getting to the point where they want to be to try out for UA. Now, at this point, Izuku has already traveled to the south and north side of Mizutafu and channeled a lot of power into his body. And Deku, craving that sweet, sweet power, he tells Katsuki that he's going to go hit up more generators to see if he can squeeze out any more extra juice. And Katsuki tells Izuku that he needs to be careful not to get himself caught, because the last thing that either of them need is a pro hero or the police catching them and putting that kind of thing on their permanent record, which reflects badly and could potentially cause both of them to, or at least Izuku, since it's Izuku going, to not be able to attend UA because of his record being not spotless. Now, Izuku understands that, yes, this is kind of very sensitive kind of topic, and while also knowing this, he does accept the risk involved with gaining more power. Now, Izuku, he never understood exactly how his power completely works. He doesn't, fully grasp it. All he knows is that, he likes the feeling of the lightning in his body. Whenever he expends too much power, he just feels so drained, and he feels as if he hasn't the will to move his body. But all that energy in his body, it just makes him feel powerful and makes him feel strong. I guess you could say that the feeling of the lightning coursing through his blood just gives him that sense of power and the feeling of being able to have control over his situation, being able to be something that he couldn't be before. And he's on a little bit of a power trip, not in a bad way, but to where he wants to get more. He wants to see how much power he can get and exactly how far he can push this desire for power. He doesn't know exactly what his limitations are, nor does he know how any of it worked. It's just whenever he ran that electricity through his body, it's as if the lightning itself spoke to him, spoke knowledge into him of how he could use his powers. He feels so in control, and it makes him wonder how he could apply it further. If it's just if it's just his quirk causing some kind of weird a personality type thing where whenever he doesn't have a lot of electricity flowing through his body, it just makes him feel negative, maybe not as encouraged. But whenever he has all that juice just flowing through his blood, all that electricity, it makes him feel confident. It makes him feel like he can do what he puts his mind to, and that he is something. He he's a somebody, not a nobody. All he really wants to do is to become a hero and help people, but the electricity just makes him feel so out of this world. And he wants to use that power to help others. So he begins to basically make his way to the south side, and as he's looking for an opening, he kind of looks around to make sure that no one's watching before kind of popping open the manhole cover and kind of sliding inside. When he gets to the bottom of where the ladder in the manhole kind of reaches, he looks around and he sees a kind of open, widened cavern full of all that, full of a bunch of murky water. And he sees power stations kind of going on here and there, but he's not sure exactly why it is that Misutafu has so many electrical problems going on. He suspects that during a couple of the villain attacks that they've been receiving lately, the damage to the ground has probably knocked some stuff loose, maybe fried a couple circuits. And as he's going along, walking down towards where he can feel the flow of energy coming from, he sees that there's a door in front of him. It's like a gated off kind of fence. And just on the other side, he can see a panel that leads to the door, probably opens it. But it seems to be lacking the necessary energy to unlock the door. So Deku kind of tries to maneuver up the side of the wall a little bit and holds on to a loosened brick. And as he gets high enough to kind of look over the railing a little bit, he points his hand out and he jolts the electrical box a couple times to charge it. And this seems to spring the door open, which fills Deku with a great delight. And as he goes in, he looks around and sees a couple of doors. And when he closes his eyes, he taps into that sensation that he feels around him, the sensation of electricity flowing through different objects. He can feel the electricity flowing through the wires. He can feel it flowing all up and down the system. But he can feel a particular signal of energy coming from the leftmost door. And he goes through it. And as he gets there, he sees the same two generators and that separation in the middle. And he jumps up right up in there, and he feels all that sweet electricity flowing from one side to the other. And he sees all the flashes go through his mind of this knowledge, feeling as if he can do a bunch of other stuff now. He feels his power growing and his capacity for electricity increasing exponentially. I'm going to say that whereas he could maybe only throw 4 electrical rockets and I'll say 10 grenades on a full charge now, I'll say he can do, I'll say that he can do 25. No. Yeah, 25 grenades and about 12 rockets. Yeah, that should be a good one. But also, he feels like a giant well of energy kind of inside of him. And as soon as he lets go of the power, the generators, and both are up and running, he gets down onto the ground and he takes a couple of steps. And he thinks to himself as he thinks back on the type of power he feels inside of him. He feels like he could possibly have unlocked some kind of electromagnetic ability. And as he looks over, he sees, I'll say, a metal bike, kind of like that's been beaten up pretty bad. And he reaches his hand out to it, and he imagines the bike kind of coming towards him before stopping in front of his hand, and the bike does it. He pulls the bike towards him, and it floats in midair just in front of him. He has unlocked the electric electrokinesis, where he's basically able to use the energy inside of objects to make them float and propel them as he wishes. I'll say another ability of his is that he's now able to project electricity out of his hands in such a way that he appears to be creating some kind of energy, like a manifestation, kind of like an energy sword out of his hand. Nothing like super sharp, but like if he was to, I'll say, like strike someone, it wouldn't cut them, but it would like severely electrocute them and give them a nasty shock. And as Izuku is making his way out of the sewer, he feels like a bit more on edge. He can sense he has a bad feeling in his gut that if he's not careful, he might get spotted. He kind of walks along the lining for a little bit, and as he gets to another manhole, he slowly opens it up and glances around before kind of popping his way out. And he looks around and he feels that he's safe. Maybe it was just a bad instinct or whatever. So he goes to the west side of Mizutafu this time. He goes through the same concept of going in the sewer, jumping around a little bit, and finding the generator. This time when he pops up on it, he feels something different. Not as much information kind of going into his head as last time, but something a little different. He gets another 2 abilities out of it. One of them feels strange, but the other, as he gets to the ground, he thinks about it for a second. and he doesn't know how to use either. It's just something feels strange about these two abilities. He thinks maybe it was a dud. Maybe it maybe he kind of just ran a dud, and only increased his capacity. So he just kind of goes along and escapes the sewer this time, and he begins to, as he's kind of escaping the sewer, he figures out that he's on the other side, closer to his school. He thinks to himself, shoot, frick, I need to get home to Mom. She'll get worried if I'm not home. So he begins to kind of run as fast as he can, back home, and he thinks maybe going under the bridge will kind of help him to get there faster, being as it's a shortcut. But as he's running, he hears a weird noise as he goes under a bridge. He feels like he feels like there's something moving under him. And as the sound kind of emanates from a manhole coming from behind him, he turns around and there's this giant creature made of sludge. It smells like a burning dumpster fire. And when Izuku sees it, he kind of makes a wisecrack and says, "Who invited the giant green booger?" Which then pisses off the sludge villain, and he goes, "Oh, you damn brat. I wasn't expecting him to be in town, but since you got a smart mouth on you, I hope you won't mind opening it up wide and becoming my meat puppet." The sludge villain kind of lunges towards Izuku in a fast pace, and his catches Izuku off guard, and he barely has time to react when he kind of puts his hand out flat, and the sludge villain kind of, how do I explain this? He seems to go splat against this weird flat surface that is somehow covering Izuku. It's kind of like an oval-shaped force field in front of him, and it kind of shoot, and parts of the sludge villain shoot past Izuku, kind of having hit the force field a bit too hard and not being able to wrap around him properly. But Izuku, using the opportunity, he jumps up and grabs onto the bridge on a very loose brick, and kind of swings his way away from the sludge villain, and kind of lands about 3 feet behind the villain, as the villain is kind of putting himself back together. And as Izuku's kind of assessing his situation a little bit more, he's thinking, dang it, what can I do? What can I do? Usually there's not really a lot of heroes around Mistaffu. If there was, then I'd be real lucky right now. Dang it. Izuku kind of freaks out a little bit as he realizes that he's kind of in a really bad situation and has no way to really get his hands around it. But being that the creature is made of sludge and some nasty viscous fluids, he's hoping that maybe his powers will help him here. So as the sludge villain turns around and starts kind of making a lunge for him, Izuku shoots a couple of jolts at the sludge, which I'm going to say it hurts the sludge villain, makes it kind of twitch out and like have a hard time like assembling itself properly in a way that like keeps it stable, functionable. And as the sludge villain is like recovering from the jolt, it kind of like converts a lot of its sludge into its right arm and sends it hurling towards Izuku. Izuku, trying to think fast, he weaves together a grenade and an electrical rocket. And as he jumps to the side to dodge, he flings the grenade into the giant fist and sends the rocket towards the sludge villain's main body. As the grenade disperses, it slathers all that nasty sludge in a lot of places, and unfortunately the missile rocket goes right through the sludge villain due to him kind of opening up his chest cavity and letting the rocket kind of pass through him. Izuku can see that the grenades are working more effectively due to them kind of sticking to the surface of objects and or kind of spreading the nasty ooze around in a way that kind of like makes it harder for the sludge villain to like deal with it. And while Izuku's trying to get his bearings, he takes the opportunity to try and like run away a little bit to escape, and the sludge villain just starts to pursue him pretty vigorously. And as Deku is trying to kind of think of a way to disperse all the sludge all at once, he gets caught. He wasn't fast enough to evade the sludge villain's next strike, and basically has his whole body like surrounded by the sludge. In his attempt to try and get out of it, he like generates electricity throughout his whole body and disperses it through like his arms, which causes the sludge villain to become a bit more unstable, but the sludge villain is like kind of powering through it in order to get his much needed meat suit. And as Deku feels the sludge villain seeping into every orifice that it can try and get into, and his consciousness starts to kind of fade away a little bit, he hears the manhole behind him and the villain now shoot up into the air before out comes All Might. And All Might makes this declaration of, "No need to worry, kid, because I am here." And All Might does this thing. He Texas smashes the sludge villain into a million little pieces and saves our dear hero, our dear protagonist, Izuku. And as Izuku is trying to catch his breath and get all that nasty smudge, nasty snot out of his system, All Might says, "I saw what you did there, kid. I may not condone the use of quirks without a license, but I'll say, you've got a lot of potential there, young man. Your quirk is very strong, and I think that you'd make a great hero one day." After Izuku kind of recoils from having had all that nasty mess come out of his system, he finally processes what he just heard the symbol of peace say to him. The symbol of peace just complimented him, saying that he thinks that Izuku has a strong quirk and that he'll be able to become a great hero. This makes Izuku so happy. He's so happy to hear that that the number one hero thinks so highly of him. It makes him so glad. So Izuku, as fast as he can, he gets his notebook out and he says, "I hope you don't mind. Do you mind signing my notebook for me?" And All Might, with a big smile, says, "Sure thing, kid. Anything for the fans. Just as long as you help me pick up the villain afterwards. I don't want him to wake up on me. He's one slippery little bugger, isn't he?" Izuku is happy to help, and after All Might gives him the signature, Izuku basically uses his electrokinesis to gather up all the nasty little pieces and put them into the 2 bottles that All Might is carrying with him. After Deku has successfully helped All Might corral that sludge villain, he basically asks All Might what he's doing here. Usually he has his his base is all the way in Tokyo usually, and All Might says, very perceptive, my young friend. I am here on personal business, but I won't bore you with all that." And as Izuku is basically watching All Might get ready to go, he begins to he sees that All Might has the bottles kind of sitting in a weird way, and says, "Hey, wait, before you go, you might want to double check the buttons. Those bottles look very loose." When All Might looks down, he goes, "Oh, you're right, young man. It appears that I have miscalculated and not realized how the buttons on these cargo pants are a bit loose." All Might, after fastening the pockets shut to make sure that the sludge villain won't accidentally slip out, he bids Izuku a very, very good farewell before jumping up into the sky with a massive gust of air. Izuku is elated. He is so excited. He got to meet the symbol of peace. He rushes home as quick as possible in an attempt to show off his newest autograph to his mom and his best friend. As he gets back to the apartment, he basically shows off the autograph of All Might to his mom, and later on he calls up his Bakugo and says, "Yo, bro, you will not believe what happened to me after I left for those power stations." Bakugo goes, "What? You get attacked by a villain?" Izuku giggles a little bit and says, "Well, that too, but I freaking met All Might, dude. I met All Might." And Bakugo goes silent before going, "You're kidding me, right?" Izuku goes, "Nope, got his autograph and everything." Bakugo slams the phone down and says, "How the hell did your clumsy behind get yourself in such a bad situation that the All Might has to come bail you out, dude?" Izuku explains that he got attacked by a very disgustingly giant booger that was not exactly receptive to his electrical pulses, bombs, and all that, Bakugo face palms and goes, dude, you really need to be careful and make sure that you're that you're accounting for all these weaknesses, man. And the next day, Bakugo comes over and asks Izuku if he's found any more power grids that he can loot for extra energy. Deku says that unfortunately he's tapped out, that those were the only 4 in the district that the city's been having problems with. But as far as it goes, he sees that there's a lot of potential in what he's got so far. I mean, the power to basically have electrokinesis, 2 different types of bombs, an electrical saber, the ability to fly, create force fields, push objects with electromagnetic force, and essentially a railgun ability that supercharges him in his depth perception to shoot things at long distances. He tells Bakugo that this is the best he could ask for, personally. That any more and he'd feel like he's cheating. So him and Bakugo basically, they talk about how they plan to get into UA and to study for the tests. But while they're working on that, and they're making sure that they're studying for anything that the prestigious school can quiz on, Bakugo and Izuku are kind of going back and forth with different ideas on the type of equipment that they'd probably send into the support course to supply them. Now, Izuku, he tells Bakugo that despite him having the electric sabers, that he feels that he needs something that can pack a little bit more juice. And tells Bakugo that he's planning to submit a piece of equipment that basically works to channel his electrical energy into a blunt force attack. Something like maybe a baseball bat would work, but just something that he can run his electricity through to pack a little bit extra punch. Bakugo tells Izuku of his plans to basically get gauntlets that can store the sweat in them and disperse in an even bigger explosion. Bakugo prompts Deku on his idea for what's going to be the amp, and Izuku gives Bakugo props for thinking of the utilities of his quirk to an extended extent. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to say that as Izuku is kind of going about his business, he in studying, his mom comes home from work and proceeds to sit down and ask her boy how his day is going. He tells her good and all that, and basically tells her about all the stuff he's studying for in preparation for the UA exams. And Inko basically mentions how she went to go visit one of her work friends today, and she noticed that there was a beach that had all this trash in it, and how she remembers whenever she was younger that specific beach was so beautiful that the community has really let it go down to the dumps and become a landfill. Izuku is intrigued to hear that there's an area full of trash that essentially is dumped by the public. And he thinks maybe he should, I'm going to say, give his services to the masses. So he tells his mom that he might just try a new project and try and go do some charity work while he's preparing for for the entrance to UA. So while early in the morning, he kind of gets all his stuff together and tells Bakugo of his plan and proceeds to make his way over towards the beach. And as he's on the beach, he looks around, kind of surveys the area, and goes, dang, this is really bad. There's cars, there's little bits of rubbish everywhere. It's just bad. And he thinks to himself, why would the people let it get this bad? That it's literally could be considered a biohazard. And that the simplest breeze could literally probably have a bunch of the trash fall out on top of him and crush him. Which kind of stresses Izuku out, I'm not going to lie. But he gets to work kind of like moving the objects around, working out his body, practicing with his techniques. Heck, while he's at it, he kind of sets up a little target practice, while he's messing around with the trash, and he's practicing his various abilities. He's practicing his accuracy, practicing the utilities of his electrical missiles and grenades. He's practicing with all these little things, but I'm going to say that there's about maybe 5 months until the UA entrance exam, right? And about that time, he's got the beach looking fairly well. And as he's going along, he kind of thinks to himself that he's making pretty good progress. That he should be able to have the beach looking pretty cleaned up before he has to ever worry about going to the exam. Due in part that his electrokinesis helps him to move things pretty effortlessly. He gives him a lot of practice to use with his quirk. Not to say that he's not moving some of the objects by himself. He's just kind of leaving some of the heavier stuff to his electrokinesis as to not strain his body. But nevertheless, he gets about, I'm going to say, 70% of the way, and he's still got maybe about 2 months left. And as he's moving one of the cars, he sees over the horizon, around the staircase, he sees an old emaciated man kind of walk up, and the old gentleman's mouth is just slacked open agape. He's looking over the whole beach, and he looks like he's gobsmacked. He doesn't know what to think of himself. But Izuku kind of goes back to what he's doing and just thinks that maybe this old dude will be on his way and is probably out just for an early morning jog or something. But as Izuku is kind of moving the stuff around and kind of collecting into a nice even pile, he sees that the old emaciated man is kind of coming down the staircase and making his way over to him. Now, I'm going to say that despite Izuku being fairly powerful Misutafu is not the best district to live in. There's at least a decent amount of crime due to not a lot of pro heroes kind of sticking around. So he's just kind of on the fence about this old dude kind of walking up to him, but he's not going to do anything until provoked. So he just kind of stands there and waits for the old dude to come up, and as the emaciated man kind of gets to about a couple of paces away from him, he goes, "Young man, are you the one who cleaned all this?" And Izuku goes, "Yeah, I did. I heard from my mom that it looked pretty bad. That back when she was a young girl, that this place was beautiful. That it was a really a popular spot for couples to come and have dates, picnics and all that. So I thought that I'd do a little something, do a little bit of charity work, and come clean the place up, make it look better. Not to mention that moving the stuff around makes for good practice for training, especially when you got an offensive type quirk like mine." The old emaciated man kind of gives Izuku a bewildered look, like, what is he talking about? The old man kind of questions Deku exactly how he's using his quirk on the trash. Izuku explains that he's just kind of using cans here and there for target practice, and he's using whenever he's not using his ability to control electrical energy to basically levitate big objects, he's kind of carrying other big objects to help build some muscle mass. That way he's able to effectively fight better and not just rely on his quirk alone in case he has to get up close and personal with people. So the old man, he asks Deku exactly if he has any other alternative reason for doing it. He said that he doesn't understand why Izuku would just kind of do this on a whim. Izuku explains that, well, other than trying to bring back something that his mom remembers, that he doesn't like to see places like this all filthy and nasty and covered in trash, that people in the past remember this place for good memories, that apparently this used to be a really nice spot for people to go on dates with their partner, and that he feels that it being covered in trash is just such a waste, that if people would only clean it, that it could be restored to its former glory, and that maybe people could enjoy the beach again. Not to mention, on the other hand, environmental issues. That, literally, this place is killing the animals in the ocean. All Might kind of takes this to heart and thinks, well, this kid does have a lot of good, motives. He obviously cares about the environment, and he wants to restore this place to its former glory. He tells Izuku that he thinks that this is something marvelous, and that he's glad that there are kids who still have that goodness in their heart to do the right thing for the environment, to, even if it may not be cool or get them any kind of credibility, that, hey, it's helping somebody in some way, and that that donating your time to help people when you don't need to, or whenever it's not your job, is something honorable and kind of that should be praised for as a trait, like the desire to go out and help people despite the fact that it's like, no, you're not doing it for glory, you know? You're just doing it because it makes someone's life better and makes people happy. Izuku smiles at this kind of compliment. And he tells the old man that he's just doing his best and that everybody deserves to enjoy the beach. Well, the old man, he looks at Deku and asks him, if he, exactly what, what his plans are. Well, Izuku tells him that he wants to go to UA and help people, that he wants to be the kind of hero who kind of who helps people overcome their limits, that he wants to help people to and make the world a better place, you know, to help people to smile and to help people in any way he can, whether that be in little victories or big victories. The old man liked this answer. He thought that it was very selfless. He found it very touching. Izuku admits that he doesn't exactly know how he's going to achieve that goal yet, but that he's going to give his best at UA. And that he's hoping maybe he'll find what he's looking for there. All Might asks what he's looking for. Izuku says he's looking for connection. He's looking for people to connect with. He kind of expresses that his area was always kind of really rough around the edges and that he only has really got one friend, and he wants to branch out. He wants to kind of, connect with people without having to worry about if they're using him for nefarious reasons or if they're just, if they're legit. And he's hoping that when he gets to UA that he'll find a lot of like-minded people that he can share his experiences with and hopefully make long-lasting connections for his future hero career. All Might offers Izuku some advice when it comes to how he can maximize the efficiency of his workouts in the morning. He tells Izuku that one way that he could always try and help himself train is to try and kind of carry objects while running around with his electrokinesis. That way he's actively kind of working out his body while practicing the mental aspect of keeping certain aspects of his quirk activated while doing strenuous activity. Kind of trying to help offer Izuku the idea of kind of training himself till each individual facet of his quirk becomes second nature, that he can kind of spring at any second. And as Izuku is pondering this, he realizes that it's getting pretty late, and he tells the emaciated man that he's sorry to cut this short, but that he really needs to be getting home, that he has a lot of studying left to do to prepare himself for the exams at UA. The emaciated man waves Deku off with a very reassuring farewell, and Izuku just kind of makes his way home. I think I'm going to end this part here. I hope you all enjoyed. And don't forget, the shadows are watching.